Days Gone feels like a mess of systems colliding together. Where other open world games like Sony's Horizon Zero Dawn manage to wrangle these systems into a cohesive experience, Days Gone feels like a collision of quiet monotony interrupted by bursts of chaos. In your quest to find rags and bandages and gasoline to keep your hero, Deacon St. John, going, random geometry will send you flying off your bike. Snipers will nail you square in the head no matter how good your cover is, and silent hordes of freakers will end you in an instant without a second's warning. It is fucking chaos. And that chaos doesn't always feel intentional. Hey, what's up, dudes? My name is Kevin, and this is a save room. And of course, we're talking Days Gone. Picked it up for $40 because of Sony's Days of Play. And, well, let's talk about if you should or not too. Okay, this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about. I randomly caught fire even though I looked like I was in the clear, and then a wolf attacks me out of fucking nowhere. This happens like all the time. It happens with freakers, it happens with enemies. There have been so many times where I try to clear out like a bandit camp and get randomly attacked by a silent horde of freakers without any indication or warning except for a few growls. Like it trickles from 1 to 100 almost instantly. And while some of this makes for, delightful recordings, it doesn't always make for a fun experience. Sometimes it gets pretty frustrating. That's not to say that I think that Days Gone is a bad game. No, not at all. In fact, if you can consider this a bad game by Sony standards, then I think they can take a few more in the chin like this. And then the good examples being your Spider-Mans and your God of Wars and your Horizon Zero Dawns. No, this is not a bad game. It's just maybe an underpolished game. Maybe not a fully baked out game is the best way to think about it. When you get down to the design basis, if you can overlook the glitches, of course, and Sony Ben has been doing a fantastic job trying to update the game and patch the game ever since launch, I think that there's just certain things that hold me back. It is the open world checklist, essentially, right? You can sneak in the open world. Check. Alright, cool. That seems to be the formula. You have upgrades, incremental upgrades that kinda advance you slowly. They don't seem absolutely necessary, but they're there. Check. You got that. You have your bandit post on the map. Check. You have your kind of hubs or base camps where you can upgrade your bike and, buy some new gear and turn in whatever bullshit that you've been scavenging for some credits or, in some instances, trust. Yeah, that's all there. It makes it feel a little formulaic, honestly, because it had me kind of scratching my head going, what is Days Gone's hook? What is its bent? Is it the bike? The bike mechanic is like, it's fine. I can't say that the bike controls all that well. In some instances it feels a little floaty. Like, I really wish there was more weight to it because there's been so... Look at this. Random attack. There's been so many instances in the game where, I hit some random, piece of geometry and go fucking flying, or the bike just gets wrecked out of nowhere, and it just doesn't feel like a thing that was intended to happen. It's just a byproduct of having so much stuffed into a gigantic game. And, it reminds me a little bit of Red Dead, right? Like, I won't say it goes as super granular with, its little, realistic details that Red Dead, had, but you have the same thing where you're scavenging for things, you get into long animations, or you're opening up the back of a trunk, or some shit like that, and even your bike is basically the horse from Red Dead. You've got to groom your bike and feed your bike, or in this game, give it gasoline and make sure it's repaired as you go along. And while the survival elements are, I would say, they're survival light elements, they're not too obtrusive to become annoying, it kind of makes you wonder why they're there to begin with. It just seems like a little extra tacked on frustration as you're getting through the game, and you're just like, why is that there? But the through line of the game is that it is still fun. I actually don't mind Deacon that much or his story. You run into some interesting characters, and because it's open world rather than like a a narrative beat heavy game like The Last of Us, you do get a better sense of, wow, a disaster's hit the world and this is how it's affected its denizens, and you can kind of take in that content as you want. Like, oh, let me go to a bandit camp, or I'm sorry, I mean to say, let me go to a settlement camp and talk to a few characters and get a sense of who they are. And that's pretty good. Now, Sam Witwer, playing Deacon, I love Sam Witwer. He's Starkiller. Not to be confused with Wentworth Miller. I always confuse Sam Witwer with Wentworth Miller. Sorry to the Wentworths and Witwers of the universe. But there's instances where I feel like they could have just turned off the mic on Sam. He mumbles through the whole fucking game for some reason. He goes around just going like, yeah, I gotta pick this up. Oh, yeah. Oh, they tried to hide this from me. Yeah, this sounds good. Oh, yeah. Like, stop, dude. Like, all you have to do is, whenever he picks up a flower or a piece of gear, just say like, oh, this is useful. And that's it. That's your line. That's it. You're done for the day. Otherwise, it gets like just really annoying to hear him mumblecore at you the entire game. But otherwise, I think he does a decent performance. You have scenes like this where I was actually kind of impressed. Where, wow, the interaction and the way that he, you know, he's a part of an MC or ex-MC, I guess. I don't know how many motorcycle club enthusiasts survived the apocalypse, but he kind of comes from that background. But he is the biker with a heart of gold kind of cliche that Sons of Anarchy gave us. But he kind of lands it. He definitely cements the character, and he is heartbroken because of the loss of his wife, and that's a big plot element that I don't want to spoil, but it's definitely like a driving element for him. And I like that. I think the game lands those story elements, few and far between as they may be, to be honest, because a lot of the game is just, you're on a fucking motorcycle going from A to B. And while there is fast travel, which does cost gasoline, sometimes it gets kind of monotonous, you know? I feel like the developers were so caught up in the fact of, look at beautiful Oregon in virtual form, that they kind of forgot to make that engaging in any sort of way. One good example is that, especially with, like, you know, the shit that you're collecting, like, you need to scavenge to basically maintain your character and your bike. You gotta get bandages, you gotta get kerosene from Molotovs and stuff. But you end up just getting the same things over and over again. Whereas, like, a game like Horizon, when you're picking up stuff to craft, you can use that towards furthering your character. In this game, it's just about maintaining, and that's not as interesting. But those comparisons are almost like unavoidable because there's so many beats in this game that are so familiar to other open world games like Assassin's Creed and even GTA, and of course Horizon being the closest example because they're both a part of the Sony family. But again, there's really cool, fun moments. Look, I am fighting a fucking bear. That is dope. I set this bear on fire, which Smokey the Bear would probably have a lot of problems with. But it is cool. You get into this neat fight. So when the chaos does come and when the chaos makes sense, it can be fun. But when the chaos comes when you're like busy trying to nail down a mission or collect something or clear out like a freaker nest, it gets frustrating and annoying, and it feels like, shit dude, I have a bunch of restarts and deaths just because the game decided to fuck me. It decided to fuck me in that moment, and it didn't have to. So I wish that was like cleaned up a little bit more, and to be honest, the world doesn't have to be this gigantic for the story that they're trying to tell. Like, I feel like they could have dialed it back in, but again, they're trying to give you that scenic drive sort of situation. There's vicissitudes to this game, but there's still a level of quality. So if you could put up with some of those lows, like the technical blemishes and some of the repetitiveness, I think at $40 especially for this Days of Play sale Sony's doing, you can't go wrong, honestly. So that's Days Gone. Thanks, everybody.